Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? So if you're here for GPU forensics, my sincerest apologies. I am filling in at the last minute, but I am doing something that is pretty cool here. So I like to think that this is a pretty fun talk. So before we go ahead and start, hello, my name is Patrick Wheltle. I am born cybersecurity analyst, born here in Baltimore, Maryland. Go Ravens, go O's. Again, I wasn't on the schedule until about 10 minutes ago. So if you're here for GPU forensics, you're in the wrong place, but it's not like there's another place for it. So we're going to talk about ghost jobs and ghost companies. I'm going to try to embrace my inner Tyler Huntley here. So Pro Bowl, let's go. Is there a lot of overlap between like cyber nerds and sports nerds? I feel like there should be. All right. So hello, welcome to Ghost Jobs and Ghost Companies, peering beyond the veil using OSINT. So for my background, again, I've been a cybersecurity analyst for the last 9 years, and this is my first time speaking at a BSides event. I had a chance to do a shorter version of this talk at Wild West Hacking Fest this past year, and I'm grateful to get a chance to expand on it further. I've got my, the normal, let's get the next slide going. I got the normal suite of cybersecurity certifications, but currently my favorite right now is the Practical OSINT Research Professional. Not because it's particularly prestigious or difficult to get or anything like that. I just really like the acronym, Patrick Wheltle, PORP. I just think there's an elegance to it, and I really like it. So, also I work at Nevermore Haunt in Baltimore, which is just like an old town mall just south of here. So I feel like I've got the intel side and I got the spooky side to really capture this talk. But let's go ahead and get some definitions first before we get started. So in this context, what is a ghost job? A ghost job is a posting on a board like Indeed or LinkedIn that the company really doesn't have any intention of filling at all. They could be collecting resumes to get a feel for the job market. They could be trying to just give the illusion of growth to investors, or they have an internal candidate in mind and they just want to post something externally for regulatory reasons. But the most important part is that they suck and everybody hates them. But before we get too far into the talk, a lot of ghost jobs truly, if it is just an internal hire that they have no intention of filling, that they put an external thing out there, aside from reading minds, there's not much you can do about that. There can be hints like really low or really high salaries for the experience requirements, but if they truly have no intention of filling that role, there's nothing really you can do on the outside. But there are some things in this talk that I think can help you if they're trying to just kind of fraudulently do anything. So in this context, what is a ghost company? A ghost company in this context means something that doesn't really exist outside of a paper trail, or at least they aren't who they say they are. This kind of became a hobby of mine to look for these. And I ended up finding a bunch of unheard companies that when I was digging around, most of them being around here were just a little less than truthful about the government contracts they were on. I'm sure that is a familiar feeling for everybody in this room if you are local. So they might be hiring for a contract that wasn't awarded yet, or they got the contract, but they don't have any employees, so they'd be held to work for because right now it's just one guy with an LLC. And yeah, digging into this kind of became a hobby of mine because, why not? So what is OSINT, for those of you unfamiliar? OSINT stands for Open Source Intelligence, which is an all-encompassing term for information and connections that you can gather using public data sets. That can be state records, social media, technical information like DNS or Whois, or just some clever Googling. The most important part, for something to count as OSINT, it needs to be publicly available without any social engineering or illegitimate access. So for example, for ghosts, gravestone rubbings, or going around a cemetery and looking at the headstones, that's OSINT. That is available to anybody who happens to be walking by. What is not OSINT would be a seance. So that is gathering information that is not readily available to anybody else. And when I came up with this sort of analogy, I was trying to figure out, it's ghoul-int, ghost-int, what's the intelligence category for speaking with the dead? There are some tricks where the line gets a little bit blurry, but in general, if it's open publicly, it's OSINT. If it's not, it's not. So it's not a proper tech talk without some crappy meme here, so we'll go ahead and, so what is OSINT? What my friends think I do, the Pepe Sylvia yarn. What my mom thinks I do is robbing people. What I like to think I'm Q from James Bond and all that stuff, and other people think I'm a Facebook stalker, but what I really do is CAPTCHAs. Lots and lots of CAPTCHAs. And why do I do CAPTCHAs? Because we need to talk about operational security before we go anywhere. So we need to talk about OPSEC. So the fun thing about OSINT is that investigations there's literally nothing stopping you from starting an investigation literally right now on your phone. This talk I know is supposed to be like an extensive method of like what you should or should not do. So I want to give a bit of disclaimer before we go any further. So OPSEC stands for operational security. It's the steps that you can take to conceal yourself or your activities when you're gathering information. When accessing a public data set, especially one that is online, you by definition are accessing somebody else's computer. That means everything that you do is seen by the webmaster, advertisers, your ISP, social media platform. For example, if you're going to a company's website, in theory, your IP address and user agent string and all that other stuff is going to be able to show up in their logs. And now, whether anyone actually reads those logs is still up in the air, but it's something you need to consider. There are different technologies that you can use to help conceal yourself online. The simplest is a VPN or a VPS. These aren't foolproof because, again, like a VPN provider is going to have some understanding of where you're going. And I personally, for like some of my investigations, I rent out a VPS, but I understand my risk with that. If I access a website, the person who's seeing what I'm accessing from will only see the cloud provider that I rent out. However, the provider I go with has pretty strict know your customer rules. So they have my real name and my like credit card and all that good stuff. So if I were to do something illegal and somebody were to get a warrant, they would be able to go to the cloud provider and find me. Now, that's not my use case, so I'm not too hung up about it, but I understand what the risk is and I understand where my exposure is. Sock puppets. Sock puppets are fake social media accounts that aren't tied to you personally at all. These have varying different difficulties to set up. Sometimes it's just a fake email or temporary email at that. But sometimes you need to get like a Mint Mobile phone number to set up one so you don't have it associated with your real phone number. That's like a 1 week free trial that costs like $2, and then you set up your accounts and then you forget about it. So also my go-to for setting up sock puppets, I'm a musician as a hobbyist as well, so I like to set up fake band projects where it's like, this is gonna be the new alt grindcore, dubstep AI music phenomenon. Stay tuned, big things coming. And then I realized that nobody looks at your profiles if you pretend you really, really, really want them to. So I kind of blend in with the half-finished music projects on the web. So I think that's nice. You can also use a VM, public Wi-Fi, or if there's any other steps you want to take. It's really up to you to determine what your appropriate level of security is for whatever you're doing. It's just like looking at a job posting and wanting to see if they're a real company or not, like whatever. Just Google it or LinkedIn, that's totally fine. But if you're going to go into deeper rabbit holes, understand what you're getting yourself into and take some steps to protect yourself. So why am I doing this? So there's a couple big reasons. First, I'm hoping that you guys can walk away with some tips on how to spot some of these companies and what you can do to be like, maybe take a step further and see if whoever you're looking at is real or not. For those of you who are hiring, maybe you can take something away from this talk by, if you realize that you kind of look sketchy yourself, be less sketchy and maybe pivot a little bit. And I also wanted to share, this is not a theoretical threat here. Palo Alto's Unit 42 research group has outed, and they named a group called Contagious Interview, which is North Korean hackers who set up a fake job interview and have you do a coding challenge, and that coding challenge happens to be malware. So this is something that they are targeting people who are, this is a tight job market, a lot of people are desperate, so it's like, you should be aware that there are people who are looking to steal your money and infect you with malware. Not everybody, not trying to get like FUD or anything like that, but it's something to be aware of. Also, these skill sets can be used if you are a white hat researcher. If you stumble upon a data set of victim information, the same tips you can use to find fake companies, you can then use those to find the real companies and let them know, like, hey, something happened here. And lastly, this is very fun. I really enjoy myself when I do this. And again, this presentation itself won't make you an expert. Hell, me giving this presentation doesn't necessarily make me an expert because like there is just so much to learn. Still, the barrier to entry to this stuff like this is low, so if you have good note-taking skills and you're nosy, give it a shot. So, case study. Why am I here? What happened? And all that good stuff. So, I am going to be referencing a case study that started this all for me. This particular case kind of became an obsession of mine to an unhealthy level. And I found a role for an OSINT investigator that caught my eye because the salary was pretty high for the experience requirements. So, and I'd never heard of the company before, so I'm like, checked it out and saw what it was. So, by the way, everything that you hear in this presentation is true as I saw it, but I am changing the proper nouns. So it's going to be using spooky stand-ins for the companies and the names. Yeah, it's all public data sets, but if something is wrong, which that's a very real possibility, I don't want to get sued or anything like that. And the point of this is that you can learn the techniques, not necessarily for me to like stunt hack and say, look at this cool thing I found. So yeah, this is true. All this is true, it's just the names are different. So, Spooky Security LLC. There is the job posting that I saw originally. It seemed like a normal, small tech startup company, but there was one detail that kind of set off alarm bells for me. I looked at the other job openings, and the positions that they had were starting salary of $500,000, which is pretty good if you can get it, and it maxed out at $760,000, which I'm cool with. That would be very nice. However, in the job description, they were looking for people with already deep established connections with the defense sector. And so I just, my thought just kind of shifted from like some no-name startup to maybe something a smidge more malicious. So I did an initial blitz to see if I could, if this is something I wanted to dig into, and that quick investigation revealed that this company was very weird, to put it plainly. There were so many little things that were incredibly strange, and I just kept digging, and I kept finding more stuff. But we're going to go ahead and start with where I started this investigation, which is domain research. Every company is going to have a domain that you guys can look at, and a lot of those domains are going to have like some pretty basic information that you should be able to find anywhere. C-suites, addresses, contacts, email addresses, general industry, all that stuff. So C-suite members, these names are easy to check on LinkedIn and other news sites where you can get a feel if this is a real person or not. However, just because a person is real does not necessarily mean that they are in any way involved with the company at all. There was one crypto company that I was looking into. It's not Spooky Security, but a different one. And it had a page for the leadership team, and the guys, they were all on a team together. And then I realized that this wasn't the CEO of this company at all. It was a car company that they literally cloned the entire website, Control-F'd the company name, and replaced it with their own. And except for, like, even the favicon was the old company's website. So except for the front splash page, everything else was exactly identical. So yeah, just because like they're there doesn't necessarily mean they are involved at all. Addresses, a lot of times these sketchy sites will use the same templates, and a lot of times those addresses won't even be real. If you're bored, literally just go look up 123 Tech Street, and you will see hundreds of companies that happen to be at 123 Tech Street, Innovation, California, Pakistan. Like, yeah, you can throw the addresses into Google Maps and figure out where they're supposed to be located. A small tech company operating out of a residential home or like a PO box or a small office park is not actually anything to be like too worried about. But if you find yourself in like a vacant lot in Des Moines, Iowa, or like the middle of a road in New Mexico, maybe consider that. So contact us. The website will have a contact us page, and there are services out there to check to see if that email address actually goes somewhere. You can check to see if it'll actually just bounce back as undeliverable. So if the company is supposed to be like, we're a Fortune 500, we've made $1 billion last year, and their contact us is hotmail.com, probably not. So yeah, and customers, all these sites almost always have like customer feedback, but you can just like grab a random string in the middle of the testimonial, Control-F, Google it with quotes around it, and if it shows up in half a dozen other companies, yeah, these are all just from the same template. And yeah, industry, you want to get an idea of what industry they're in and search to see if anyone else had ever heard of them before. There are a bunch of other record types that can reveal information such as whois or DNS information, which typically don't show a lot, but it sometimes can reveal if a company or website was created recently. There's a tool that I use that I'm not associated with at all. I just really like them, Silent Push. They have a free community edition that's really cool. It has a bunch of historical records for like DNS and stuff like that. And my dad runs a boiler shop in the city, and one of his customers got hacked, and then his domain got typo squatted. So it was supposed to be an M, and it was coming back as an RN, and then sent like actually, we have a new invoice here. Can you send it to this bank account instead? Classic business email compromise. And on Silent Push, in about 2 seconds, I was able to put that domain in, saw that it was 6 days old, and it went straight to the provider. It even gave the abuse email to send so that we can get a hold of them. So that was really helpful, and it's free, so I recommend it if you are looking into domain information like that. There's also a site called Backlinks Watch. Backlinks let you show where a website has been linked elsewhere in the web. So the more legit, more people are discussing it. More unlegit, it's just going to kind of be in those SEO PageRank websites. So yeah, in general, look up the address, look up the context, see where it goes in Google Maps. Oh, and look and see if the website if the text is AI generated. There's detectors out there. They're not 100% accurate, but a lot of real companies use AI to write their company website. So it's not like a guarantee that but 100% of fake companies use AI to make their own website. So what did I find when I was doing my initial deep dive into spooky security? So we're going to do a lightning round because this was a lot. Let's begin. We had stock tickers that don't exist, cryptocurrencies that don't exist, software that doesn't exist, no user guides, manuals, or Stack Overflow posts, or anything like that. Basically, no chatter about these guys at all. The backlinks led to nowhere. It was just random SEO websites. There was a link to the company Instagram account that was set to private, had 0 posts and 140,000 followers. That's not real. This is not a real thing. Yeah, there's no way we can do it without botting, especially with no chatter about them at all. There was a link to a job posting that led to an authentication page, which asked for a PIN, but if you just stood there and did nothing for 3 seconds, it let you in anyway, which is rad. Behind it was a PDF with nothing but their marketing strategy, but it was covered in government portion marks, but those portion marks didn't actually associate at all with the data written there, and they were just kind of nonsense. The address of the company led to a skyscraper where you can rent virtual office space in Wilmington, Delaware, which lets you incorporate in Delaware without actually being in Delaware for $99 a month. When I found this, I was deep in my obsession about these guys at this point, and it's like an hour away from here. So my wife and I got lunch. I went to the building and I took a selfie in front of it. And it was a Sunday, so the front door was locked, but when I pulled it, the security guy buzzed me in, and he let me flip through the directory. I was basically like, yeah, I think these guys might not be real. Have you ever heard of them? He had never heard of them at all, so that was fun. So another really fun thing about the initial sort of deep dive into these guys was I found their deleted attempt to make a Wikipedia page about themselves, where the mods of Wikipedia were asking the same questions I was, which was, who the hell are you guys? Because yeah, you can't just set up a Wikipedia page about yourself unless you were actually notable of some kind. So because it's Wikipedia though, the logs for the mod chats are all public. So I was actually able to read the back and forth between whoever was trying to create the website and the Wikipedia mods. That's all deleted now, and the username of the person who tried to create it, unfortunately, was a dead end. I tried to see if I could follow that. But on the deleted Wikipedia page, I found 3 names that were apparently the C-suite members of this company. So again, we're going to use fake names here, but this is what we got. We're going to go with more ghosts. So we have the CEO of the company, Gengar. The chief legal officer, oh, come on, Booberry, and the chief commercial officer, oh, come on, Bloody Mary. All right, so those are the 3 names that were associated with the Wikipedia. So let's talk about people search. So people search, there are quite a few sites available for if you had a specific name or address to search. These can be a bit difficult to parse if you're looking for someone named Maria, Mohammed, or John. However, these sites let you filter down by state, phone number, age, which can help narrow those results. My personal favorite is the cyber background check. It's just what's given me the best results. Now, these aren't entirely reliable. A lot of these data scrapers get things mixed up. And one of my personal projects when I was starting to get into this was building a dossier on myself and seeing what kind of info was about me on the web. And there were quite a few things, there were some addresses, some phone numbers, and emails that were all mixed up between me, relatives, and complete strangers. And it's easy to spot when something's wrong when it's about yourself, but it's nearly impossible when it's someone you don't know. So you could keep it as something as evidence, keep it as potential information, put it in your notes, but don't treat it as gospel. That said, Mr. Barry had a very unique name, and something I'd never heard before, so it was pretty easy to conclude that, yeah, this guy, he wasn't real. Like, there was nothing about him. I could not find a single person in the entire country that matched that name. And the only information that I could find that was associated with that name tied right back to spooky security. So, like, that run actually wrapped up pretty quickly. That was pretty easy. Thank you, Booberry. 1 down, 2 to go. So, we got 2 more of these guys to go through. Let's talk about corporate records. You know, very exciting stuff. When it comes to looking for corporate records, there are a few sites that are available. One of my favorite is opencorporates.com, which is a public data set of basic corporate records. There are 2 main things that can help you when you start your search. You can either search by the company name or the name of the officers in that company. So this is useful for a few reasons. One, you can pivot from company names to see if that company is solo or if they are a branch from another company in a different state. You can also see if the people running this company have other companies registered in their names, which could reveal additional avenues to investigate if they have some reputation, if they're like a serial startup guy or something like that. Now, the individual pages have a few things that would be useful to us. It'll have your basic information, names, officers, addresses. And you can compare that to the information that you've already gathered from your search so far. And again, pop the address into Google Maps and see where it goes. Another thing that's really helpful is the registered agent. This is supposed to be the person who accepts all the legal paperwork for the company. Now, a lot of those registered agents tend to be LLCs themselves. So the registered agents also have their own registered agents, which is a whole trail that you have to follow. But we'll get back to that. PIN. We're going to put a pin in that for right now. It'll also tell you what state it's registered in, and it should have a link to the state website that you can actually pull up, like in theory, the articles of incorporation. And it's going to have some good information for whatever you're looking at. But as with everything, your mileage may vary. And there are other websites that catalog this information, but Open Corporates is my favorite, so it's my go-to. That said, Bloody Mary here. This was a trip. I love this. I put spooky securities into opencorporates.com, and yes, we saw Gengar and Mary there, but when I Googled Bloody Mary's name, there was a lot of talk about her, because if you look for her on Open Corporates, she comes back with 72,000 companies in her name. That is very, very weird. And folks didn't have a clue who she was. Truly, like, there was like people speculating that this is some sort of like I Am Spartacus situation where you like show up to the bank and you're like, who are you? Like, Bloody Mary. And they're like, yeah, sure, buddy. Like, here you go. Here's your LLC. And by the way, I did actually follow up because after reading this talk at Wild West, she only has 68,000 companies now. So, you know, things have changed. But there were actual legal proceedings that had her name listed in there, and the legal proceedings that we don't know if this is a real person or not. So like a real ghost CCO. So a lot of things like this, when it comes to like OSINT in general, some of these things don't get dug up just because other people assumed someone else has looked. So I started looking. And again, I stayed up way too late on a weeknight, digging as deep as I could, on multiple weeknights, digging up deep as I could, showing up to work exhausted and obsessed. I started with spooky security on Open Corporates, and then that was registered by an LLC. That was registered by an LLC. It was a branch into another state, which was registered by another LLC. But that LLC didn't have anything. That was at the very top. So I searched for those guys and found, at the very top layer, a company that makes companies. For $200, they'll do all the paperwork for you, and then they just need to have a person to sign the documents. And that company was headquartered in Texas, and that means it narrows down where I have to do a real estate search. So Texas Files, where you can look up like real estate records. And so I looked up Bloody Mary's name, and there was one person, and I popped that address in, I put the address of the company, 20-minute drive. In all likelihood, we got him. So I did a little digging into social media here. And yeah, like, she's a real person, and I'm not going to get too in the weeds of like what we did for that, just because, like, you know, she's kind of just a lady with a job. And that job is literally setting up LLCs. Like, if you looked at most of the records, they are like nail salons, yoga studios, car mechanics, stuff like that, where it's just someone who wants to do something, but they don't necessarily do the paperwork for setting up a company. So, like, she seems nice, and she's just kind of like the lightning rod, the person who has to sign off as the organizer of that. And so that's why she's all there. But most importantly for me, she has nothing to do with spooky security. Why is she listed as a C-suite member? I have no idea, because she has not. I was freaking out. I was not okay, guys. So yeah, 2 down, 2 to go. So I was mentioning social media earlier, and we're going to go ahead and dig into that a little bit. So social media is a treasure trove of stuff like this. There is no shortage of information you can get from TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, or whatever else. There's also a whole extra conversation we can have about the less than public information in Telegram and Discord servers. But to this topic, we're going to be focusing on LinkedIn. Now, in my experience, LinkedIn is a bit of a mess when it comes to doing OSINT, because their whole business model is they want you to buy LinkedIn Premium. So your searches can only go so far without it. And also, excuse me, where was I? Yeah, and if the person you're looking at has LinkedIn Premium, they can see if you're looking at their profile, and for the most part, it doesn't really matter. But if they are some sort of scammer or some ne'er-do-well, this could be a problem. Also, for the most part, you have to be logged in to see anything, and I don't know if anyone else has this problem, but I keep getting my LinkedIn sock puppets banned. I don't know if I'm been particularly unlucky, but it's been harsh on me, and it asks me to upload a government ID, and I just don't want to be that guy trying to get a fake ID from like the other like teenagers who are just trying to buy booze, and it's like, what are you doing here, man? In my mid-30s, being like, I'm just trying to get a LinkedIn account, like, no, that's really lame. I don't want to do it. But even with its difficulties, LinkedIn is still a valuable resource. And again, if you're just doing a quick search, you can just see if the post that you found on Indeed is legit or not. And it should be your first place to search if you're just doing a real quick deep dive. If you pivot by individual or by company page, that can all help you determine where you should look next. And always note, check for AI posts. So Gengar here. Gengar was listed as the founder of the company, and at first he was a bit difficult to track down, but eventually I was able to find a copyright registered to his name, which included an email address, and that email address had a personalized domain, which was huge for me. I found out that domain resolved to some charity website for like getting the Gengar Foundation, which was like getting tech to kids in Africa or something like that, but it doesn't matter because it wasn't real, like it wasn't a real charity. The website itself was pretty much non-functional, but it was the missing link I needed to do to find this person's LinkedIn, because when I was doing the original search, I couldn't find it because it was just first initial, last name. Since I did this investigation, that guy's LinkedIn has been completely wiped, and the charity website now leads to a deleted YouTube link. It's weird. But yeah, like on their LinkedIn, I was able to see that they're like some sort of serial startup guy. Most of them seem to be nonprofits focused on tech or kids or something, but all the domains either 404'd, under construction, or just weren't functional. I was able to match some of these orgs on open corporates were also tied to his name, so they were real in the sense that they were in good standing and registered with the state, but they weren't real in the sense that they did anything. So so who was this guy? I was freaking out. Of the 10 companies on this page, one of them was not like the others. It was like this esports league. But I Googled that, and I found that at least that existed. That had an online presence, and that was like, there was a community with a Discord and all sorts of things. And it was the most concrete thing that I had landed on in this entire investigation. So, oh yeah, Gengar Gaming. I stole that from some guy's YouTube profile, sorry. This is kind of what I think kind of blew it wide open. I found a fake New York Times article hosted on an AWS bucket that was connected to one of Gengar's other fake companies. And it was about a 15-year-old who started $1 million company in his bedroom. It was esports tech and DeFi, which was like the esports league, apparently. And who was this 15-year-old? None other than Gengar. So there were actually two separate copies of the article that was being hosted, so I was able to download them. I did some metadata analysis, which revealed that the PDFs actually predated the formation of Spooky Security by about 2 years. So there was some serious time put into this. And when I mentioned this at Wild West, I actually got the questions like, oh, have you done version metadata analysis? And I said, I don't know what that is. So no, I didn't. It turns out PDFs, I'm just going to share this with you guys because I didn't know. PDFs save history in there. So you can actually revert to older versions of that PDF because it's all saved in there. That they don't get rid of the changes. So I didn't know that. Maybe that'll help you with something. But that means that this guy was 15 years old in 2020. So Gengar here, if he was 15 in 2020, that would put him at 21 today. Narrowing that down, I was able to specifically search for colleges, and yeah, in all likelihood, the guy at the top of this company that I had been obsessing with over for weeks was, in all likelihood, an undergrad. So, yeah, there we were. 3 up, 3 down. And the very important thing is that one of the most important things when it comes to OSINT investigations is not necessarily where to start. There's no shortage of places to start. It's when to stop. So I kind of set my flag in there and called it a day. Or at least that's what I thought I did. Twist of the century. Let's go, guys. So what is the actual purpose of this company here? All right. So I thought, I didn't know, and I still don't know, but I have a better idea of it than I did the last time I talked about this. We had an insider. All right. So one thing I hadn't mentioned when I was talking about the LinkedIn research was that aside from the CEO, I had found only one other person who listed themselves as an employee of this company. And they even had the job role that I was talking about at the very beginning that apparently paid $500,000. So, which, like, good for them, right? But they still had the filter of hashtag open to work on their profile picture, which, like, listen, I don't know about you, but if I'm making $500,000, you're dragging me out of there. Like, even if I hated that job, I'm quiet quitting until you fire me. And then I say, how many hours did I bill? All right, cool. So like that didn't line up, but there wasn't really much to go off of with that guy. So like I kind of just like took a couple screenshots, jotted it down in my notes, and then moved on. A few months later, though, I found out that the guy got a new job, and this job seemed legit, and he seemed to be happier there, and he seemed nice, and the curiosity got the best of me. So I buckled down, and I got the free trial of LinkedIn Premium, and I reached out to him. This is decidedly no longer OSINT, by the way. This person was still a perfect stranger, and when I reached out, I was completely honest. I was just like, hey, dude, my name is Pat, and I have been obsessed with your old employer. Is there any possibility I could ask you a few questions? And yeah, luckily it turns out he had questions of his own that needed answering as well, so he was just as confused as I was. So we set up a Zoom call and started chatting. So over that hour, I go over the stuff that I had discovered, and he told me what it was like on the inside of the company. It turns out he was helping a sick family member for a while, so he had like a gap in his resume, so he was taking whatever he could get. And Spooky Security brought him on board. Now, in theory, Spooky Security is supposed to be making like security software for like first responders or something like that. And this guy had like FedRAMP experience. So he's like, yeah, dude, like just let me see it. I can like totally like let's get this on board and we'll get the process going. And meanwhile, they're all organizing entirely on Signal and saying like, no, that's fine. Can we just get your emails? Can we just get your contacts? Hey, what's the phone number of the person who's like the most like high level? Can we just get their email? Can we just get their email? That's totally fine. And yeah, he never saw any software being made. And eventually he just got sketched out and moved on. And I asked him about the compensation. He told me he never saw a dime. But I did get permission to tell him, or to tell you guys about the conversation that we had together. So, and that really right there kind of shifted it from, because I thought originally it was like, this is some kid who's watched way too much finance TikTok. And now it is, oh, wait, that might actually be a touch more malicious. Now, that really is the end of the story when it comes to this, because before this talk, I went and checked, and I tried to see what was still left. And a lot of the websites I were looking at had been deleted or wiped, and all the job postings have been taken down. And I don't think I'll, at this point, find out what really happened there. And at this point, it's probably better that way. So, all right. So, where does that leave us? So I'm going to leave this up right here. This is like the list of tools that I used for this particular investigation. We don't have time to go into the details for all of them, but we'll go over the main points. One thing that I didn't list here is Obsidian. I use Obsidian for all my note-taking. It's great. It's free. It saves to Markdown, and you can like link it to other stuff. It's spectacular. It makes it really easy to share. But yeah, you can take a picture of this if you want. This is not extensive. There's way more stuff out there. What's useful to me. But yeah, vast majority of, if you're looking for ghost jobs, Open Corporate's LinkedIn and some basic Googling does most of the heavy lifting for you. I still do these deep dives into something I see weird every now and again. If you're bored and like looking at weird job postings for fun, because you're cool like I am, just go on Wellfound, which is like a startup, it's a job board for startups, and you go look for roles that are equity only. And really, it's like, do you want to work for that guy who's like, I have an idea for an app. Can you do the front end and the back end and the marketing and the security? Can you do that? And I'll just be the ideas guy. If you want to work for a guy like that, there you go. You can have that one for free. I swear to God, if I had half the like self-confidence of like some of these founders, I would be unstoppable. You would not be able to stop me. So you don't need to go into as in-depth as I did when you should come to a conclusion that you shouldn't apply somewhere. This talk should give you some tools to do your own research, but again, follow your gut. If it looks too good to be true, then it probably is. There are AI agents apparently out there that will apply for 1 million jobs for you. I'd avoid those if I were you, just because you have no idea where your personal information is going, and I shouldn't have to tell a room full of cybersecurity professionals that there are people on the internet who are not who they pretend to be. Best case scenario, you waste your time. Worst case scenario, there are actual malicious actors out there who are looking to do you harm and are willing to take advantage of a tight job market to prey on someone who might be desperate for work. So keep your head clear, be safe, and be smart. And last piece of advice, this is my shot in the dark. If that happened to be your company and you recognized it, and you happen to be in the room, this is actually anyone else who's hiring for a startup. My advice to you, if your company looks like it could possibly be a malicious intelligence operation, don't make your company look like it could be a malicious intelligence operation. And that is it for me. I suppose we have time for questions, if anyone has any.
You not try to find retribution with them? I mean, you did all the research, not...
Well, I mean...
revenge whatsoever? Glitter bombs?
Sending glitter? Well, like, the addresses that they were going to were just, like, random business parks that they definitely had no actual footprint in. So I'd be glitter bombing some poor mail clerk. And yeah, like there were contacts and like emails that I could have like, pretended, put like a fake resume and all that stuff like that. But again, that goes outside of OSINT and more into like social engineering, and I just didn't really have an interest in that. I know, but.
Have you taken a look at the Wayback Machine?
Yes, that is another tool available. Wayback Machine is for anyone who is interested. It holds backups of websites and stuff like that. So if something gets deleted, you can pull something else up. That was a separate OSINT investigation that somebody was like harassing a friend of mine's Instagram account, and he had this really crappy blog where he was selling a really crappy book, but it was basically like. You put in your Twitter handle and he cyber harasses you, but it says it's interactive, alternate reality game, ARG, there we go. And the fun thing about the Wayback Machine was it was listed as $10, but if you go into the Wayback Machine to an earlier copy of that website, it was $20, scratched out $10. So yeah, that one's fun too. Yeah?
How have you incorporated automation into your
So a lot of this ends up being fairly manual. I try to implement like sort of like AI, like scrapers to do some of the work, but by definition, if you are looking at something like this, there's just not a lot of information out there. So it's easy for a machine to get sidetracked and then find something that is completely different. Because like the whole point with hallucinations is like, if it's an information-starved environment, it's just going to try to grab anything. And if I wasn't in an information-starved environment, I would already have the answer. So it's like, I've tried to use stuff like that. I do use like scrapers to just grab like an entire HTML page, so I don't have to like jot everything down. It's like, all right, I'm on that page, press this button. Like I can't remember the extension I have on Firefox, but it's literally just, it grabs the HTML straight up, so it presents exactly as I saw it originally, maybe with like some images broken. So there are tools like that that help you save the notes, but I haven't really seen anything. That could just be a skill issue, but yeah, when it comes to like automating any of that, it's difficult.
What tips would you do if you were going to be a bad actor? How would you do it differently?
That's a fun one. So if I was a bad actor, the trouble is like, the thing about this is that this works. And so it's more of a numbers game. Like, it's not necessarily like I can create the perfect fake company that looks legit, or I can create 100 crappy ones. And like, if it works, like it's probably the same amount of effort and it probably has a higher success rate. Like if 90 of them get outed or wiped or anything like that, then who cares, right? So if I was the adversary, if I was trying to fake this, yeah, I would just try to maybe like use like a real person that's not paying attention and then set it up in their hometown. But more likely just, quantity over quality. No, again, that's getting into social engineering and like outside of the OSINT realm. Not something that I really want to like get into as far as like interaction and all that stuff, especially if I don't know who they are. Like vast majority of the stuff that I've found is just like, it's not like malicious and it's not even necessarily like fake. It's just kind of bad. Like it's just like, oh, that's just kind of a really weird idea. So yeah, no, I haven't really done anything like that. The most like sort of like outside of OSINT that I got into was reaching out to the guy who used to work there.
You ever find any legit companies you just be like, dude, your shit looks like malicious operation?
Yeah, so well found, if you go to the ones that have not gotten any funding yet, you're going to see some wild stuff. It's just like, we're going to start like blockchain for umbrellas. And it's like, what? Stuff like that. So it's just like, if you want to just, and there's another guy at Wild West Act who like put me on to another company that was like, this guy was really excited about the patents that he got, but like the patents were like, hey, do you have Ethernet in your office, but you don't have a power plug? You can use this Ethernet adapter as your power plug. And it's like, I don't think you're ever really going to be in a circumstance where you have one, not the other. But so like that was the guy legit had a patent and he legit made the thing. It's just like, there's only so much you can do with that.
You never know what you're gonna have.
Right. Who knows? Maybe like there's like some spaceship that like uses Ethernet, but it's like, oh, we forgot to put plugs in here. What are we gonna do? I think, unless we have any other questions, I think we're actually at time. We have 5 more minutes. If I can probably take one more if you got one. Oh.
So the case study you showed us was maybe most likely a malicious intelligence operation, but you also talked about like other reasons for ghost posting could be like trying to collect business without like.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you saw any signs or like are there any common signs of that?
So again, like if it is truly like a legitimate company and the hiring manager truly has no intention of filling it, outside looking in, there's not much you can do to spot that other than like having an understanding of like what the job market really looks like, and if it's completely off. Like there was like one government contractor that was like, GSSCI clearance, you need to have 10 years experience, we're starting at 60K. And it's like, no, that's not how that works. So just something is off like that is probably the best indication that either they're not serious or they just haven't thought it through. All right. I hope you guys liked the talk. Appreciate it.